Chapter 17. I don't have anything to wear. Jessica sighed, examining her closest. I don't even know what to wear. Just wear anything. David said. Whatever you wear, you will be the best-looking woman in the room. Sometimes, Jessica stated, you can be such a man. Why does that sound like it's not meant to be a compliment? Just wear anything, he says. Jessica says, reaching into her closet and pulling out a clown outfit complete with size 80 shoes. Here's a ghost from Halloween past. I think I will just wear this. Smashing, simply smashing. David said with a hoot. You might be the only person dressed like that, but I tell you, I sure would admire your courage for wearing it. He proved adept at dodging a size 80 clown shoe aimed directly at his head. How on earth did I let you talk me into this? She muttered, digging back into her closet. David walked over and browsed in at the limited selection of dresses, and frowned. I know you are not much of a clothes horse, Jess, but you really don't have much in here. Raising a boy on a reporter's salary doesn't leave much budget for clothing. She considered. Well, it's official. I have absolutely nothing to wear. Good? Go naked. Jessica turned and gave him a considering look. Would you like me to show you my birthday suit, so you can see if it is fit to wear to your mom's 40th anniversary? David frowned. I am sure it is awesome, but I am not sure Mom would approve. The good news is there are reportedly a couple of decent women's clothing stores in town, so let's just go find you something. Since I got you into this mess, the outfit is on me. I can't believe you like to wear women's clothing, Jessica said, grabbing her purse. Although you do look like the type. She proved just as adept at dodging a flying size 80 clown shoe. So, Jessica, what kind of affair will this be? Formal, semi-formal, casual? Asked Lois Ahern, leading them towards the dress section. Lois was as much a fixture at Tita's clothiers as the racks and the counter, having worked in the store for over 40 years. Semi-formal, David answered for her, and pointed to a V-neck black velvet dress with gold sequins on it. I like that one, he said. Jessica reached over and glanced at the price tag. Wow. Forget it, that is way too expensive. I can give you 20% off, honey, Lois told her in a secretive voice. It's going on sale next week. I can take care of you though, why don't you go try it on? 5 minutes later, Jessica came out of the dressing room looking both radiant and a little uncomfortable. It's really nice, but I don't have the right shoes, or handbag, or I'll bet you Lois does. David smiled. Jessica sat quietly as they drove south towards St. Louis. Her new outfit was carefully packaged and hanging on a hook in the rear seat of the car. Let's change when we get there, David said. I need to stop by my place anyway. May as well take a change of clothing. We can just stay there overnight and come back in the morning. No need to push ourselves. Jessica tried not to fidget, but it was all she could do to sit still. This is going to be weird. She almost pouted. I know my family's a little different, David said, eyes scanning the roadway, but it shouldn't be that bad. No, I am sure your family is fine, it's not that, she said. This will be the first night in over 10 years that I have slept in a different bed. You're kidding, right? David asked, suddenly realizing that she was not. I mean, I assumed that. Jessica smiled at his embarrassment. I am not a blushing virgin, if that's what you mean. David's face turned beet red, and Jessica tried hard not to laugh as he stammered, well, no. That's not it, what I mean is, well. Jessica laughed at his discomfort. Good grief, David, I am beginning to wonder about you. I mean, we have been sleeping together for days now. In the same house doesn't count, he said with a huff. Perhaps it's time that I get back to staying up on the hill. They both knew that he had been well enough to move back to Riverview House for several days, but neither one had brought up the subject. Well, if that's what you want to do, I won't try and stop you, she said with a casualness she did not feel. It seems kind of silly to me to heat up the place just so you can rattle around inside without furniture, or a working kitchen, but if that's what you think is best, then perhaps you should move back there. I wonder if I can even remember how to find my apartment after all this time, he said, deftly changing the subject. The dog might need to go outside by now. Jessica worked at keeping a straight face. That's not funny, David. Jessica said, giving into a chuckle. I've always wanted a dog, but I am not home enough to take care of one. The conversation headed towards the safe subject, and remained there the rest of the ride. David pulled into the parking lot of his suburban apartment complex, and he popped the trunk to unload the luggage. Jessica stepped out of the car and frowned. Looking over, David caught the look on her face and was puzzled. What's wrong, Jess? You feeling okay? Yeah, I am fine. Don't you smell it? Smell what? The smell of the city. I've always hated that smell. It's so unnatural. I don't really mind all of the people, or the traffic so much, or even the noise. It's the smell I just can't stand, she said, carefully carrying her dress bag and overnight case. Well, without all those people you wouldn't have the traffic, which makes the noise and the smells, he said, noticing that he too had become sensitive to the odor of exhaust fumes and pollution. You get used to it. I didn't even notice it until you mentioned it. I don't want to get used to it, she said, following him up the stairs. David's apartment was on the top floor of a third-story walk-up, on the west end of the structure. No need to check the mail, it's all being forwarded, he said, not expecting a reply. He opened the door with 2 keys, and pushed it open to reveal a neat, if austere, living room. The furniture was serviceable, but not expensive. The curtains were heavy and dark, and the walls were virtually bare of pictures. David walked through the apartment, checking things out. Wow, it says pretty clean when nobody is living here, he joked. If you want to change, the bedroom's back around the corner. Jessica walked down the hallway, and turned into his bedroom. The bedroom was even sparser than the living room, with nothing on the walls, but one mirror over a long, low dresser. She sat, put her clothes down on the bed, and glanced over at the clock. Her heart skipped a beat when she noticed the time. It was getting late. She would have to hurry to get dressed. Then she realized that David hadn't been back to the apartment since the time change. The clock was an hour fast. She relaxed, but tensed again, when she noticed the small picture that was sitting next to the alarm clock. It was a picture of Susan playing in a pile of leaves. Leaving her clothing change for a bit, she took the picture into the hallway, where she bumped into David heading towards the bathroom. I've never seen this one, she said quietly. David nodded. That's because I took it. That was a couple of days before the accident. It's the last one I have of her. Go ahead and get changed. I will dig out a few others that you haven't seen. Jessica went back into the bedroom and changed, and when she was ready she headed for the living room. David was sitting on the couch, wearing an expensive-looking black suit, white shirt, and red silk tie. In his lap sat a well-worn scrapbook full of pictures of Susan. Jess, you look absolutely stunning. Without saying a word, Jessica sat down and accepted the book carefully, and started thumbing through the pages. There were literally hundreds of pictures of her older sister, showing all of her different moods. The only common theme in the book was the quality of the pictures. These were not snapshots, she realized, but rather they were works of art. The photographer who took them had a great eye for detail, composition and light. Jessica turned a page, and saw several tastefully photographed nudes, and carefully closed the book. You took these? She asked. Yes, some of these shots are amazing. You are good. Really good, she said, trying to put her thoughts into words. You don't take pictures anymore, David. The one you saw in my bedroom was the last one I've taken. After Susan passed, he said with a pause, I just didn't have any desire to take any more. Jessica nodded. There's so much about you that I don't know. Most of what you don't isn't worth knowing, David said, carefully taking the book and placing it back into an end-table drawer. He turned to her, trying to explain. I tend to be single-minded, in a lot of ways. When I was a photographer, that's what I did. I carried a camera with me everywhere I went. I saw the world as though it was one big photograph waiting to happen. That's how I was with Susan, too, David said. That's what made it so hard. I couldn't talk about her for years. I wanted to come over to you and Philip at the funeral, and tell how I felt, but I just couldn't do it. I was numb to my core. When we went to the grave, that's when I promised Susan that I would find a way to renovate the house for her, like I had promised her. I had to have something to focus on, there was no way I was going to make it without that. Jessica looked around the room and thought about what David was saying. The barren walls, the inexpensive furniture, the absence of books, a stereo and television now made perfect sense. He had put aside everything for 10 years, pooled every resource, for this one huge promise. I don't remember seeing you there at the funeral, Jessica said absently. Of course, I don't remember much of anything about that time. I do, he replied, all too well. So, Jessica said, you spent the last 10 years planning, saving and working towards this one big project. In a couple of weeks, it's all going to be done. Then what? I don't know. Jessica stared at him with a raised eyebrow. You don't know? You are the man who has planned everything, in the most minute detail, for 10 years, and you don't know what you are going to be doing 3 weeks from now. No? Why not? She asked. I have a deal with my father that I am supposed to come back here and start back with my father's company as soon as the house is done, or December 21st, whichever comes first. He explained in a grim tone. Back to the office, to the cubicle and computer screen filled with building plumbing and electrical systems. So that's it then, Jessica said with a sick feeling in her heart. Back to the city, back to the daily grind. Well, David said cautiously, that's one option. What's the other option? The deal was that I was to come back by December 21st, he said while standing, or to not bother coming back at all. We have to go now, we don't want to be late.